Today, we're going to talk about Star Wars Shatterpoint, and specifically, we'll be talking about the stances for primary characters. Now, as you can see, I've got Ahsoka's queued up here, um, and there's a couple of tools that I like to use for looking at Shatterpoint stuff. First off is Tabletop Admiral for looking at the cards and all in one place. And then we have Wombat Tactics with their dice simulator. It calculates the probabilities of certain numbers of successes based on the attacker, what stance they're in, the defender with their stance, and you can add rerolls, attack dice, some of the conditions, exposed, disarmed, stuff like that. So really useful tool for helping you gauge what you should actually expect to get from your combat tree when you're doing an attack, rather than just looking at the total of that combat tree and hoping that you'll get to the end or something like that. So we'll start by kind of going through some of these primaries um, alphabetically, and then but I do have a document where I've gathered some of them. Well, I think I've gathered all of the stance cards, but that's allowed me to pull them around and really put them side by side and be able to compare them. So this is just going to be a lot of comparing. There's not anything specific that I'm going to be kind of aiming towards with this, but just a little discussion about comparing stances. I'll also assume that if you're coming to this video that you have some familiarity with the game and how the combat trees actually work and the attack dice and all that stuff. So first off, we'll compare Ahsoka's two stances. So she has Jar-Kai and Form 5 Shen reverse grip. Now, you can tell looking from one to the other, we've got 7 attack dice in Jar-Kai, 5 and 5 ranged and melee defense, while Form 5 Shen reverse grip has 6 attack dice, so 1 less, 6 melee defense die, 7 ranged defense dice. So the reverse grip is obviously the more defensive form. Jar-Kai is a little more offensive. And moving on to the expertise trees, we also see that they're pretty much they look fairly similar. One of those crits turns to a strike on the 5+, and the 2 strikes goes from a 1 to 2 to 1 to 3. So again, slightly less on the offensive side for Form 5 Shen. The defensive side of things stays the same. Oh no, that's not right. The defense goes up slightly. The results themselves are the same, but what you need to roll to get those is different. So here, only one expertise gives you a block and crit to strike. 2 to 3 gives you 2 blocks, crit to strike, and the jump. Whereas Jar-Kai, you need 3 to 4 for that result. And then 5+ for the last, while 4+ gives you the most you can get for the expertise defense results in reverse grip. Now, I'm going to be, in order to kind of keep this all standardized, Rex is kind of, I think, often considered as average Joe in this. And we're not going to add any extra dice for his hunkers. We'll just be using his base combat tree as a standard for looking at how many successes you're likely to get through. So there's obviously lots of things that change the math here. Exposed, those hunkers, cover, that stuff. But we'll start with just basics so that we can do a more standard comparison. Now, as you can see in Jarkai, she's got 7 dice in attack, and our average is 3 successes after the defense. You can also see here, so the bars are your chance of getting exactly that many successes, while the line, it is on the other side the percentage of getting at least that much. So I kind of look for the 50% mark where that is. That's a little bit after the 3 successes. 3 successes or more, you've got a 60% chance. So that's pretty good there. So on Jarkai here, we're very likely to get 3 successes through on a kind of an average attack. So what is that going to actually get us? So on Jarkai, that's going to get us 2, 3, 6 damage and a disarm. So if that's kind of what you need to get on that attack, or what you're hoping for, then that's setting your expectations well, I would say. So just don't expect to be able to get all the way through kind of on an average attack and get those 9 damage and strain, or getting to that pin shove, which is a really good combination. Not super likely, still possible, but just kind of manage your expectations for those first 3 first 3 steps. Now she does have a 5 dice attack, so we'll put that in and see what we get there. Okay, so now it's moving, basically that line, it's kind of the same profile, but now that's moved on to the 2. So you've got about a 60% chance of getting 2 successes or more. So on an average attack, oops, wrong one, then you're looking at maybe getting those 3 damage and disarm. Now we'll switch stances and go to 4-5 Shen reverse grip. So slightly worse expertise because it takes more to get to those crits, but we'll look at that. And on our 5 dice attack, I'd say that looks a little bit lower for 2 successes or more. Probably getting closer to the 50% mark than 60. And then, but if we have our normal 7 dice attack, then again we're sitting at the 60%. So fairly similar. It might have gone down slightly. Yeah, you can see that the mean has gone down by 0.2 successes. So hopefully still getting those 3, but you might be seeing more 2 successes than 3. What's that going to get you? Well, if you take the top, you could get a couple shoves out of it, 2 damage, some recover, or you can get those 2 shoves with 1 more damage or 2 more damage, so 4 damage, 2 shoves, and a jump. So the jump is on the 2nd success, so if you really need that jump, you can have a good likelihood of getting that. Next, we'll move on to Asajj, just kind of going alphabetically here. So she also has a Jarkai form, and then form 2 Makashi. Makashi has more consistent expertise from 1 to 3. Expertise, you're already getting those 2 crits. Basically, I mean, any expertise, you're getting 2 crits at least. At 4, you're getting a strike, and 5 or more, another crit. So that should be pretty consistent. Rolling 7 dice, which is 1 less than our Jarkai. Our defensive dice is the same. Our expertise has changed slightly. The Jarkai is your is actually better on defense, a little less consistent on the offense because one of those crits is turning into a strike. But you can get more strikes out of 5+. So a little more swingy. But we've got some crit mitigation on our defense. So pull up her. We'll go with Jarkai. Jarkai seems to be the more tempting one. I think I've found that playing her as well. You look at 8 dice and you think, oh, how far can I get down this tree? And you've got either 6 damage, you can set off that active ability on 4, maybe get up to 9 damage and a pin, or if you're taking the bottom, you can actually get all of the conditions on them with 6 damage and active ability. But how many are you actually likely to get through here? I've probably screwed this up by changing the attack dice. We haven't ruined the formula. Asajj can be a bit of a force-hungry figure, so that makes it so you are hoping to set that active ability off on her tree instead of to get the force push, or even to get one of the jumps without paying that force. Now we can see that the average is above 3 this time, and the line is kind of looking like you're close to 50% for those 4 successes, but very good likelihood of getting those 3. The 3 is, you're pretty confident in getting 3. In practice, the 4 is a nice bonus. It looks like you've got a decent chance, but yeah, it's dropping off when it comes to getting down the rest of the tree. So if you're looking for 6 damage, or you really want to throw some conditions on somebody, then that's a good stance to be in. Makashi has more healing going on. If you need some heals, then that's a good side. Maybe jumps, shoves. There's a reposition on there. Still the active ability on 4. So we'll see how our chances change with that. So our average has gone down slightly, but look at this. The line is really consistent for getting 2 successes. You're almost at a 100% for getting 2 successes through, and that's probably coming from those 2 crits on the expertise. It starts dropping at 3, but you're still at 80% chance to get through 3. Whereas I think on the other side that was more of a 60 or so percent chance. 4, it does drop down quite quickly. 4 or more is about 40%. So you're really not expecting to get a full tree through on an average attack. But you do have some healing on the third option here. So if you want, you can get 3 heals, a jump, and 3 damage, or get that heal 4 damage, shove and reposition, or getting the 2 shoves with 6 damage. So really that's more than your Jark High side. If you're not worried about putting conditions on, you can get the 6 damage still while getting 2 shoves, which is really good as well. Now we'll move on to Cad Bane, who has a ranged and melee attack. Needs no introduction. Is definitely your stronger ranged side. We've got a crit with any expertise, and then potentially a strike and more crits. Instead of a strike on 4+, you're getting a damage in the melee side. Not super likely, I'd think, to get those 4 expertise. Let's see. So again, we're a little over the 3 successes for average, and probably sitting a little under 80%, maybe 75% for those 3 successes, dropping down to 40 or a little above for 4 successes. So let's see what 3 successes gets you. So 2 damage, either way you're getting 5 damage. You can potentially get a jump or a heal, plus the shove. So that's, if that's what you want in your attack, that's great. Now let's compare that to his other stance. So he gets a little more defense on melee, another attack die in melee. His expertise also becomes better for melee because those crits are turning to, or the strikes are turning to crits. And yeah, I guess this is his slightly more consistent side, with that strike becoming a crit as well. 1 less dice on ranged attack. Your defensive expertise is changing slightly as well. You're losing the block on the 1 to 2 expertise, but everything else is staying the same. So let's see what you can expect from his other tree. So now we're dropping a little below 3 for our average successes getting through, which is surprising slightly. I guess it's similar to Asajj's change there, where you're staying at very close to 100% up until that 2 successes, and then it starts dropping down more dramatically, a little above 60 probably for your 3 successes, and even lower 30 or 25 for 4 successes. So you should definitely expect to get those first 2, which is 3 damage and a disarm. This is actually the same as Ahsoka's first 3 steps on the one tree there. 6 damage and disarm. All right, let's move on to Count Dooku in his Force Mastery side, which is his better range side. It gives him 8 attack dice. It's also got crits and damage in the expertise, although he's also got 2 crits with any expertise on his melee attack as well, but less attack dice in melee. Shorter tree, I think, than his other side as well. So we're just above 3 as an average. You've got a little over 60% chance for those 3 successes, dropping down to 40 for the 4 successes. So as you can see, it's being pretty standard that you're getting those 3 successes probably fairly consistently, and anything past that is kind of bonus. So we can either get 3 damage through with a pin, do some recovering, or 4 damage through with disarm and strain. Now swapping to his form to Makashi, his melee dice goes up in both cases, and the ranged goes down both cases. The ranged expertise also goes down. You're basically getting an extra step on the melee tree, as well as 1 less expertise, giving you that 3rd strike, or that 3rd result being a strike, with 5+ giving you 3 crits. And his defense, instead of just being straight blocks, starts to negate crits, which is really good because you're probably, especially in melee, you're probably going to overdo the number of blocks to get rid of their hits. So you need a way to get rid of those crits. And with his active or reactive ability as well, with Surely You Can Do Better, then you can actually spend force to get rid of any of those remaining hits as well. So being in this stance, getting rid of those crits, you've got lots of defense dice in melee. So you might be naturally getting rid of all the hits with your blocks, but you've got his ability to get rid of that even more as well. And then that can set off your other Twice the Pride Double Fall to get your dash and 5 dice attack. So, yeah, let's switch here. I'm expecting... Oh, I was expecting... Oh, this is the ranged one. Okay, so yeah, the ranged one goes down quite significantly, being 1.5 successes as an average. You can see in that line that it drops off really quickly. I should look at the melee and forced mastery so that we can compare those. So melee, it's got that consistency for the first 2 strikes, but then starts to drop down. Again, the 60% for 3 successes or more. The average is a little under 3. And so when we switch to Makashi, then it's popping up over 3, and getting around that 80% for 3 successes. A little over 40 for the 4. So what's really great about this for Makashi to Makashi is right off the hop, you can choose whether you want a shove or a reposition. That's really nice if you need to get him moved, or if you really need to push him, push the other person. You can also see, okay, I got my 3 successes, so I don't need the first shove. I can use that shove and get my reposition as well. So either way you go, you're getting 5 damage, but either 2 shoves or shove and reposition. Now, in his reactive attack, I wonder if I could change it here. Additional dice. Let's do... That would work. Yeah, okay. Let's do it that way, and then I won't screw up the formulas. So, things are dropping slightly there, but you're still probably getting the 2 successes. 3 is about 50%, rather than 60. Your mean is 2.4. So you, in that reactive attack, probably looking for 2 successes, which can get you a reposition if you've been knocked off of a point and you can get to a ingress or back onto the point. It's really good. Or you can, if you've been shoved, then you shove them back, and now maybe you're still on the point and you've shoved them off. So that can be really strong reactive. And Enforced Mastery, I'm sure this goes down. So you're still looking at probably the 2 successes. Oh, except it's -1, not -2 to get 5. So yeah, pretty similar. And so you can look at getting maybe some recovery or disarming them. It's really probably better to be in Makashi once you're starting to get those reactive attacks back. All right, next is Darth Vader. Now, the thing about Vader is he has a lot of offensive abilities. So he's got his Vader's Fury, gives him an advance, and will also add 2 damage to the damage pool. So you always got to keep that in mind. Your hatred makes you powerful. You're probably always going to be using it on Vader as well when he's in melee, and so you can suffer 2 to add 3 attack dice. So we'll be taking that into account as well. Now we have Dark Rage, and I'll be comparing this to Maul because he's also got Dark Rage, but we'll get to that later. This is definitely his I want to just kill you side, although you do have some shoves in there as well. 7 base melee attack dice, but you probably adding 3 to that. 2 crits in your expertise if you get any, and then just blocks for your defense. Nothing too extravagant there. It's mainly just damage, normal blocks, stuff like that. But we'll look here. Jedi Hunter. So unfortunately, I was gonna try to look at other Vader, Emperor's Servant Vader, but he's not gonna be in here, is he? And same with Luke. But that's okay. We can skip the dice simulating side of things. So just a base attack. You're above 3 for your average, 80% for 3 successes, probably 40 to 50% for the 4 successes. So you're getting 4 or 5 damage. You can get the 2 shoves or the strain. But you're more likely going to have those 3 additional dice. And so that, look at how that moves things. So now you're closer to 5 successes, potentially getting through. And you're pretty much at 100% until 3 successes, around 80 for the 4, 60% for the 5. So, and I would say that this happens in practice as well. You're often getting full trees with Vader when you add those extra 3 dice. So if you want to dash, you can go through and get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, plus those 2 from his ability. That's 9 damage and a dash. Or if you need more damage for whatever reason, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 plus the 2 is 11, and that's pretty much any primary other than Vader himself. So Dark Rage is the I'm gonna kill you side. Not that Gemso isn't. The defense gets better, dice and expertise wise. The offense, you're seeing a lot more strikes rather than crits. But he does have a ranged attack with the Gemso side. So adding those 3 dice, over 80% for the 3, you're close to 4 successes on average, and that's the 60% mark, I'd say there. So this one, well, not that the other stance didn't have shoves, but here you can get shove and pin, or expose potentially those 2 shoves anyway. And then if you get icing on the cake here, the extra 3 damage, or a climb if you either shove that person away or wound them, so that you can actually get your climb. So 5, 6 damage average, up to 9, and then plus those 2. So 8, or again 11 damage potential there. Now let's go back to Dark Rage here for a second. Just to compare, we've got Maul, who also has Dark Rage. You can see between the 2 stances that the dice are the same. The amount of dice. So Dark Rage, that's the same. Sinister Cunning, the one with the ranged attack, same here. Dice wise, the defense expertise is actually also the same. Maul's offensive expertise stays the same for everything. His Dark Rage defense gets a little more interesting, because instead of blocks, adding blocks, it's adding some recovers, jumps, stuff like that. So some interesting things that can go on there. I don't know, and this is the first time that I will get the opportunity to mention that I don't know why they don't standardize their formats a little more, because this is literally the same like number of steps for these trees and where it breaks off. But for whatever reason, they decided to go diagonal with Vader's and down with Maul's. So, and yeah, I don't know. Maybe an OCD thing, but like, don't you have a standard format that you would then adjust for different characters? But anyway, minor gripe. So again, this Dark Rage is Maul's I'm gonna kill you side. We have more shove opportunities. The bottom track, well, so yeah, the shove comes slightly earlier for Vader. So the damage there is replaced with a shove, and that shove is just gone there. But I guess you're getting your damage at the end instead with a dash. The bottom track is the same, this piece of the branch, but we can get up to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then some damage from your expertise potentially. So again, you could be killing any primary if you max that out. Of course, Maul has his ways of adding dice to melee attacks as well. That's a lot more variable as you go throughout the game. But if we take our standard 3 successes, you're getting 5 damage and a shove instead of 4 damage and a shove and 2 shoves. The top track is still 5 damage strain. If you go further, you can get a jump with the 2 damage instead of the shove, and so on. But then Sinister Cunning is kind of slightly more interesting, I would say, than the Gem So side. You're still starting with 2 damage in the shove, 2 damage reposition, and that's really what you want to get to if you're in this stance with Maul, because that really adds to his mobility. You can add a pin or expose, which again, same here, different format, backwards. But anyway, and then you can get some recovers for Maul. and a jump again with that 3 damage at the end. So basically, Vader has taken those last 2 steps and split them up because he can get a climb, which is basically a jump except with some restrictions, and then the 3 damage on its own there. So let's maybe skip over to Maul and see. I mean, the math is going to be different for him because, maybe at the start of the game, you're not going to have any damage on him. Well, if you use both of his abilities, you'll get one more dice because you'll have 3 damage on him. So we'll do that. Again, mean pretty close to 3, 60% potential success rate there. And then, so those first 3. Oops, that's not the wrong. There we go. So yeah, those first 3 steps, like I was talking about. And then Sinister Cunning drops down a bit. But you're like 90% for those 2 successes, probably 50 for the 3. So you can really hope to be getting that reposition, the pin or expose, plus the damage to get to 5 instead of 4. You can hope for that, but don't necessarily expect it. Probably adding a damage from the expertise, which will get you to 5 damage, or 6 if you get to the third step. Let's look at the ranged attack, which does not get any extra dice. And so we're sitting at about 2.5 again. 80%, a little over 80 for the 2 successes, and 50 for the 3 successes. So kind of a similar result. Now let's move on to Anakin, who also has a Gemso side, which is his more killy side, whereas the Form 5 Shen is his more defensive and shove side. So 3.5 is your average, 80% for 3, 50 for 4. So you're looking at definitely those first 3 steps. As you can see, he's got good crits on the expertise. So you're probably getting those 7 damage and strain, maybe getting the 8th damage and jump or pin. And then the Shen, the offense goes down. You're hoping to get some shoves out of that, which it's, first 3 steps are all shoves, so it's pretty likely. We're dropping down to 2.4%, 2.4 successes being average. So probably expecting, it's like 50% for the 3 successes. So definitely getting the 2. So 4 damage, 2 shoves. But the 3 successes, maybe you'd get that 3rd shove and damage. But you might also be looking for that reposition and 4 damage with a heal. So set your expectations a little lower for this side offensively, but you've got guaranteed shoves in your first couple steps. Now, what I want to compare with Anakin is the Darth Vader who has been spoiled recently, the Squad Pack Vader, or Emperor's Servant. And this is interesting, I think. I like to pull up cards when something goes off in my brain that, hey, these kind of maybe look similar, or even just the fact that they're the same form or same name for the stance. And so what you can see here with Anakin, the Empire's Servant Vader, and Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker that have been spoiled recently, is that the form does, it all does take the same form, same dice, same defense, although Luke's is slightly weaker on defense because you need 4 to get those 2 blocks. And offensively, the expertise is a little different for each of them. Luke is actually the one with the damage on the expertise, but that's 4+, so not sure if you're getting that. Starting off with 2 strikes for Vader and Luke. Getting a crit on your next step. But more strikes for Vader. Anakin, this side's more consistent with all the crits. So if we're kind of looking at our 3 success rule, which I'd say would be average probably for these dice, although more consistent on Anakin. With Anakin, we had 7 damage and a strain. With Vader, we have 6 damage and strain. Again, on the 4, we've got the jump with damage, or this time it's disarm with damage instead of pin. And then more damage down the tree, but not likely to get that far. He doesn't have the dice buffs that the other Vader has. With Luke, again, you're expecting 6 damage, but this time a reposition, so he's more mobile. Potentially mobile there, no jump on the next step, but you've got disarm like Vader, or expose there. The strain comes later, with the jump also later. So interesting. I'm sure these 2 were inspired by each other, and probably Anakin's. Obviously looking, I think, more closely at those forms for when designing these 2. Then 4-5 Shen, and we've got Ahsoka in there too with her reverse grip, which she's the more defensive one. But this is the more defensive form for all of them. They're each starting with a shove, step 1. 2 damage for Vader and Anakin, 1 for Ahsoka. This is the less consistent side for Anakin. Crit and damage for Vader. 2 strikes for Ahsoka. So again, a little more damage and consistency with Vader. But you've got shove, pin, shove, which is a really big combo. Good combo. You lose one of the damage, but get the pin instead of another shove. You get the damage up here with the recover. And I noticed there is kind of some scrambling between these forms, like with Vader and Anakin, Luke. You're kind of getting similar results, but the way where they show up in the tree is different. So, reposition down here instead of up here. Disarm there instead of there. But we're following the same 2 damage, 1 damage at the end. 2 recovers, 2 damage shove at the end there. So full tree is fairly similar. You've traded a reposition for expose, traded a pin for shove, jump for jump for, well, I mean, the reposition's kind of changing places with the disarm. So I guess the expose result up here, he's getting a jump down here, which you don't see on the tree. Again, more defensive side, same dice, although Ahsoka's got more defensive than instead of the attack dice, and more healing on the tree. Jump earlier, but still in those first 3 steps, you're getting 2 shoves, potentially the pin if you get farther down. All right, Grievous. He doesn't have any offensive buffs, but let's look at quad arm. Which is his I'm going to kill you side. Again, we're hitting that 3.5 average, so 80% for 3 successes, 50 for 4. Just like Anakin, you're expecting those 7 damage, potentially the disarm, or you could get 5 and shove, or 2 shoves and 6. Maybe getting a damage on the expertise. But this side is less defensive. You got 1 or 2 blocks, only 4 dice. And the reposition also is at the end of the tree, but some potential for more damage. If you really spike to 11 there, on the bottom 10, but you could get damage from the tree, so that would kill any primary. Now, Cunning Warlord is the more defensive side, with more dice. You're not getting the block, but you're getting a crit to strike, so you're getting a bit of crit mitigation. But what's more useful, or more what you want to be on this side for when you're defending, is those dashes and repositions, because it makes you much harder to push off and keep off of points. Now, let's see here. So 1 to 2 was crit hit. 1 to 3 is crit hit. So you need 1 more expertise to get the 2 crits. But you have a ranged attack on this side as well. So let's see. We'll start with the melee side, what we're expecting. Now it's only 6 dice, so you're dropping down to 2.4-ish. Average successes, so 80% for the 2, probably 50 for the 3. So on the melee attack, you can expect those first 2 successes and hope for the 3rd, but you're getting push pin on those first 2 successes and 4 damage. Push pin, again, really good combo. Potential for a jump. You'll be fishing for that though, and some recovers. And on the range side of things, that goes up a bit. You're getting closer to 3 as your average. Probably 90% for those 2 successes, and 50 to 60 for the 3 successes. So you, in the ranged attack, is when you can hope for a little more, getting those 3 successes to try and get that jump or recover, if that's what you're looking for. Now, I think I'll end this video with General Kenobi. We'll split this into 2 parts for the primaries. And so with Obi-Wan Kenobi, we have Form 3 Ceresu, which is not great. Luckily, his other stance is great. Thing is, it's great at pretty much everything. And this side is just not. You do have a chance for reposition. It's down at the end of the tree. And just on a normal attack, which is 5 dice, you're looking at less than 2 as your average. So even with the what should be consistency of these crits on the expertise, you're only looking at getting maybe 2 successes through. 60% chance of 2 or more. And it really drops off. Look at that 4. Your chances of getting 4 are next to 0, like maybe 5%. So really don't expect to get here. And this is supposed to be his healing side. Here it's like 20 or less percent. Now he does have the ability to get 3 more attack dice, which helps, of course. We'll see how that helps. So now we're getting a more average profile here, but still like 60 to 70% for those 3 successes, 40% for the 4. But that's after you used an ability to add those 3 dice. A good ability, of course, gives you a jump. You are probably going to be budgeting to make sure you're getting that ability, but it's still costing you a force to get those dice to make this an average attack. Because with 2 successes, 4 damage, a recover, pin, or strain. 3 successes, you're getting more recovers or can do disarm, and maybe 6, but it maybe. You can get a jump on his defense, but you're also getting less defense dice than his other side. So we got 5 and 6 compared to 6 and 6. And this side, the Ataru form, has the crit mitigation. So you don't even want to swap into this for your defense, really. I mean, especially if you're getting if you've got a hunker on him, and then you can use his ability to dash back. So, I mean, it's probably nice to be able to fish for that that jump, and you've got the consistency of 2 blocks throughout. But here you're getting a block and a crit to fail, so that's better, really. The offense expertise is not as consistent. There's strikes in there instead of crits, but still more results. You're getting 2 results earlier in that, and then 4 if you get 4+. So we'll swap into that. Ataru is also giving you shoves, potentially conditions, more damage, no recovers, but that's really the only thing you're losing by being on this side is the potential recovers. So if you've done hello there, you're looking at 4.5 as your average successes. So with 4 down the tree, you can be going, you get 2 shoves, 7 damage, disarm, expose. You're maybe looking at 5 successes, potentially 2. Once you're getting into people with lower than average defense, so then you can really fly down here and shove them to oblivion. Because you can get 3 shoves and pin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 damage again. Or you're taking the bottom track and going 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, same thing. He does max out at 9, but with the shoves and all those conditions that you can throw on people, it's their next activation is gonna hurt anyway. Honestly, still don't see a reason to not be an Ataru for General Obi-Wan. And what's interesting as well is that pulling up the Form 3 Sarasu forms, of course, both of Obi-Wan's take the same form. There's some scrambling again of the symbols. but he's getting some shoves in there where he only gets one at the end of the tree. The jump's earlier. The reposition is earlier, and that is key to me because you're really almost never getting this reposition. But you could maybe get that with Obi-Wan out of hiding. No pins there, but and one less damage. But full tree is still 6. So his max is still the same. His expertise not quite as consistent on the defense. One less die, but he gets one more attack die. And some of these are strikes instead of crits. But yeah, just the number of dice, the position of some of these is not as good. An earlier shove and the reposition being earlier would be really nice to. I think if you put that reposition on like 2, then all of a sudden it's tempting to actually use the Ceresu side. I tried to fish for it once, and got like 1 success, and went, yeah, no reason to go in Ceresu. Luke's is more interesting while still being consistent. Better defensively. 2 shoves off the start with the jump potential. Lumi, more defensive, very much more defensive. But that's kind of her thing too. But still, 1 more base attack die. She can't spike that up with any abilities, but still. And in 3 successes, you could get the pin shove. I'm sure that's not as guaranteed with those 6 dice, but still that possibility there. Some recovers, but 5 damage pin shove be a decent result. And yeah, some recovers there. So, oh yes, and then Barris is here in Ceresu as well. Loses some defense, but she's got repositions going on that make her more mobile. The shoves are just insane, and the reposition on 1. Same with Dooku. That opportunity to say, okay, I want these many shoves, so if I get these many results, I can either choose if I want shove on 1 or reposition on 1. If I'm already getting the 2 shoves I need or something like that. I had a play where Barris happened to be beside Obi-Wan, and so she got her extra 2 dice. She got 4 successes through on Maul, and so I said, okay, let's go the reposition side. So I'm going to reposition over to Ingress point, shove Maul way off, and then Obi-Wan can get that point. And then I can still do my move and go over to another point. And then I used force push someone off that point, and voila, you're getting two points. And yeah, there's just no way that anything like that is happening in this Obi-Wan's Ceresu side. Like, you're not even shoving anyone off the point. So anyway, hopefully that was interesting. And I will make a part 2 to go through the rest of the primaries. So thank you for watching, and hopefully see you next time.